January 7, 1972, Valencia International Airport. An Iberia Sud Aviation SE 210 Caravelle 6R recently landed in Valencia from Madrid and is scheduled to follow Flight 602 to Ibiza. There are 104 people on board the aircraft, 98 passengers and 6 crew members. The crew of Flight IB 602 was as follows. Captain 37-year-old Jose Luis, experienced pilot with over 7,000 flight hours. Co-pilot Jesus Montesinos Sanchez. Flight engineers Vicente Rodriguez Mesa. 3 flight attendants worked in the cabin. At 11 a.m., the Caravelle took off from Valencia and headed for Ibiza. Flight 602 was scheduled to fly at FL 150 14,927 feet, but according to the crew's communications, the altimeters were significantly overstated by about 5,905 feet. The entire flight passed without deviations, and no problems were identified by the crew. When approaching the Ibiza airport, the liner began to descend. While flying over the coast of San Jose, the pilots reported passing an altitude of 13,943 feet, although the actual altitude was 11,975 feet. It was raining and foggy on Ibiza at that time, but in general the weather corresponded to the meteorological imaginary crew. At 12 p.m. the crew reported being at an altitude of 5,498 feet. The air traffic controller contacted Flight 602 and said,
Iberia 602 landing will be carried out on the runway number 25.
To which the captain replied,
Iberia 602, I would prefer a direct approach to runway number 07.
The air traffic controller agreed with the captain and gave them permission for a direct approach, to which the captain reported that the descent had begun and then added,
Get me a beer, we'll be arriving shortly.
Flying through fog and low clouds, Flight 602 was descending towards Ibiza Airport when the crew saw the slope of the Sierra de Atalayas directly ahead of them. The pilots pulled the controls towards themselves, trying to fly over the mountain, but the heavy liner did not climb well. At 12:15 hours, 9 miles west of Ibiza Airport, with flaps and landing gear retracted, Flight IB 602, at a speed of 278 knots, flattened into the western slope of the Sierra de Atalayas only about 18 miles below the summit, 1,515 feet from the impact. The liner was torn into 2 parts. The bow with the cockpit flew over the ridge and crashed onto the eastern slope. When the IB 602 flight tag disappeared from the radar screens and the crew stopped responding, air traffic controllers sounded the alarm. Since the plane was last seen on radar over the island of Canedra, air traffic controllers mistakenly thought that it had crashed into the sea between Canedra and Ibiza, so the search was concentrated in this area. But one of the locals, Jose Rebus, said that he saw a plane hiding behind a mountain in the fog, after which he heard an explosion. When he arrived at the site of the explosion, he found the wreckage of the airliner and found no survivors, after which he reported the incident to the guards of the San Jose barracks. They also went to the crash site and recorded that there were no survivors. The crash of Flight 602 claimed the lives of all 104 people on board, which at that time made this crash the second largest in the country, 9th in 2021, after the crash of the British Comet 4 near Barcelona, 112 deaths. It was also the largest plane crash in Spanish aviation, until in the same 1972 it was surpassed by the Convair 990 crash in Tenerife. Spanish investigators are investigating the causes of the crash. After a thorough examination of the wreckage and analysis of the flight recorders, the investigators concluded that the cause of the crash was the erroneous actions of the crew, who, with a vertical visibility of less than 1,000 feet and flying under instrument flight rules, allowed a descent below a safe altitude of 2,001 feet, as they did not follow the instruments. The crew was distracted by extraneous conversations, and instead of controlling the instruments, in particular the altimeter, the crew, together with the air traffic controller, were discussing a football match.